What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Simply Walk the Talk. I am your host, JoshuaJHolland. Today, we have a very exciting episode. As we promised, we're going to be giving you some very different content. Today's guest is Germany Mayfield. Germany's journey through life has been filled with passion and authenticity. Prior to pursuing writing, he spent his time as a fitness coach, inspiring and motivating individuals to achieve their health and wellness goals. Driven by his love for reading and his thirst for knowledge, Germany has now found his calling as an author. Drawing from his own personal experience, he proves that he is much more than what the eye meets. With a positive and introspective outlook on life, he crafts meaningful stories that inspire readers to find their own sense of purpose. Germany's unwavering determination to seek out the meaning in every experience is reflected in his writing, making it both inspiring and thought-provoking.
Welcome to Simply Walk the Talk. Our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time. This podcast explores all things health, wellness, fitness, lifestyle, and biohacking. Stay tuned as we explore various thoughts, methods, and experiences from a multitude of conversations between our interesting guests and experts through many fields of work. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Simply walk the talk. Simply walk the talk.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you for thank you for having me on. Thank you for including me. And you read that really well. I appreciate that, man, for sure.
No problem, man. It's nice to have you back on the show. The last time you were on the show, I put you through a pretty brutal workout, and you handled it like a champ, like the champ you are. And since then, I still have yet to find anybody crush the 15x5 workout like you have. So well done, kudos.
I appreciate that.
Imagine that you haven't done it since then, have you?
No. I think what I did was it was the push-ups. That was the one to not. I think I did it not on my knees the entire time.
Yeah,
that was no joke. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, stay tuned because I'm gonna be rolling out some pretty exciting content around that book. But for today's show and for what we're talking about now, I want to focus on your new endeavor, which I kind of explained in the intro, but you are now an author. And I know your journey, at least part of your journey that you've expressed to me. It's been quite some time that you've been looking at wanting to write a book, and you bounce some ideas off of me, and I threw some thoughts back out to you, and it's really amazing to see that you finally have done it. And I've been watching your content. You've been working with a publishing company, and if I understand correctly, this was self-published, but I think you also have a company that's helping you to promote it and things like that. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about your journey. Let's talk about why you wrote the book in the first place, and then let's get into the meat and potatoes of it.
For sure. Yeah. I always say, man, it was definitely a labor of love. It was probably a year and a half, a little bit over a year and a half of actually engaging with writing it, stopping, starting, and just continuing and knocking it out. But it took 38 years, right, to finally actually tell the story for real. So, there were pauses where it was 3 months of just nothingness, and then several weeks of, grinding, getting it done. But the way it started is actually, it started as first of all, it's a middle grade book. So the age range is between 8 and 14 in that category. So, but it actually started as a autobiography, if you will. But I had convinced myself that I hadn't accomplished or done enough as an adult to encourage adults to read about me. So what I did instead was I said, let me repurpose it and focus on kids and try to help them through telling my story in a fictitious way, if you will, sort of reimagining my my childhood experience as well as retelling the actuality of my childhood experience. And I feel like that was important because it's to share with others because it's not unique. So again, I repurposed it, took it from being an adult book. I thought about just doing like a picture book, 20 pages, but then as I started writing, I noticed like I blew through 20 pages and I'm like, I don't want to just have pictures and stuff like that. So it turned into a chapter book that I think I got to about 14,000 words. And then I was like shopping it around the editors, and I was encouraged by editors to add 6,000 plus words in order to be taken seriously as a middle grade writer. So I went back to the drawing board and did that and complete the project successfully. So.
Can you expand upon that part you mentioned subtly? You just had a subtle mention about the fact that it's not unique. Can you expand upon that a little bit?
Sure. So in that, well, the story is about a 12-year-old boy who has a strong desire to develop and meet, to develop a relationship and meet his father, who he had never met. And in fact, he had never considered having a relationship with his father until his best friend was complaining to him about her experience with planning her 13th birthday party with both of her parents. And he thought to himself, his name is Marquise, he thought to himself, wow, that's a problem I'd like to have. And so he starts to visit the idea of meeting his dad. You know, who is this guy? Why do I look the way I look? You know, why am I athletic? Things of that nature. So that's what the story is about. And it's not unique in that there are several hundreds of thousands of households that grow up where a child grows up with just that one parent, whether it's a daughter or a son, and they may struggle with sort of this identity crises or identity issues, if you will, self-worth, you know, where do they come from, and seeing their friends and other family members who get an opportunity to engage with both parents, who get called down to eat dinner with both parents, who have to sort of bounce ideas off of both parents. And it's not a unique thing. And it's something that I sort of yearned for as a kid when I was young and never had an opportunity to do or experience. But I saw it through television or other, you know, mostly television, obviously, as a kid growing up. That's all you really saw. There weren't all these media outlets like Instagram and Facebook. But as well as knowing that my friends have those relationships, I'm playing, you know, in basketball games and both parents are in the stands, but only my mom is there, or sometimes not even her, or, you know, living with my grandmother for a period of time for many years. So that's why for me, that's why it was so important to sort of help someone, help a kid that's going through that, because it's not unique.
And I would maybe double down on that and say it's not unique in the Black community, especially, or the minority communities, right? The Black and brown, and so I can relate to that because, again, for those of you that don't know my story, my parents were divorced growing up. The difference between Germany and I, and Marquise and I, and the way I grew up, is that I knew both of my parents, but there was still this struggle of wondering if both of my parents were going to show up for games and going to be able to support me. And you kind of just, if you have the wherewithal to struggle through and to grow from these experiences as a kid, then you kind of realize that can help build you as an adult. It can build you as a person, as a human being, as a young man, as a young Black man growing up in today's world. And then there's those who don't have that resilience to be able to understand that and work through that, or even desire to work through that. And so I like some of the things that you mentioned, in that you had, at first, you really didn't have a desire, or Marquise didn't really have a desire to get to know his dad. What created that change? It sounds like it was that party, right?
Well, it was even before the party. You know, opening chapter, he's having this conversation with his best friend, and she's complaining. She's like, "Oh man, you know, my parents, they make such a big deal out of my birthday party every year. They ask me this question here, this question there. How many people are coming? What about this? What about that?" And she just wishes that she would be left alone. You know, y'all figure it out. I don't really care that much for whatever reason this year. It could be that she's coming into being a teenager, and you know how that can be with a teenager. I definitely know how that can be with my teenager. So, you know, there's this, she's sort of jaded and over it. And for Marquise, he started contemplating, he's coming into his 13th birthday. He's starting to contemplate maybe the grass is greener on the other side. You know, it had never stuck out to him that I should consider what my life would be like if I knew my dad. Now, for me personally, I did grow up with a father. Um, he wasn't my biological father, but I will say this, and although I feel like my situation growing up in a single household isn't unique, I do think that I was sort of uniquely picked. And what I mean by that is this: the father who raised me, Bobby Preston, he's passed away. I consider him my dad. Um, he knew by my age of 5 years old that I wasn't his son, but yet he still continued to treat me as such. I would go over his house. He would take me here, take me there. I lived with him at two different points in my life. Um, he still chose to be my dad, even though he found out that biologically he was not my father. I think that his experience, being that when he was 18 and getting ready to enlist in the Army, he found out himself that he was adopted. He didn't know that. And so I think that, that set the course for him to accept me and choose me. And I think that I'm blessed in that way. I'm grateful for that, because it's one thing to have a child and take care of them, but it's another one to, I think, choose. And I feel like I was chosen to be cared for, to be nurtured, to be loved and attended to. And I think that that's unique. So, you know, although some may look at that and say, man, that sucks to find out at 18 you get ready to join the Army, like that your parents who raised you to 18 weren't, and they lied to you or manipulated, whatever negative, you know, framing you want to put around that. Well, how about the other side of that? You know, he was groomed and prepared to accept what was coming just a year or so later. So, yeah, I'm grateful for that for sure. So, when I was 14, I asked him straight up, you know, are you my dad? And that was an interesting ride home, but we can get into that as we continue. But I'm thankful for sure.
It's powerful. Um, Obviously, I know quite a bit about you because you and I have known each other for quite some time. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I met you right before I moved to New York, which was a long time ago. and
Yeah.
and you know, and so I got a chance to meet Bobby. I mean, I didn't wait. I don't think I actually like physically met him, but I know who you're talking about.
Yes.
Um,
I
and
remember I brought him to the core club. So
okay, that's right. So I that's
hung
what
out
I
in the
thought.
library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so we did meet, and then like you mentioned, he passed away unfortunately, tragic accident,
Yes.
and I remember that shift in you. And I don't think I've ever even talked about it, but I remember that shift in you and how that impacted you so much, because this was a point in time in which you I knew you were struggling with knowing and finding out who your biological dad was, but I didn't really realize it until Bobby passed away. And I thought, okay, wow, this is deep. And I tried to do my best within my limited knowledge of what that experience is like. I tried to be there for you as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I seem to remember there was a point in time in which you were like, bro, guess what? I'm like, what's up? I think I found my real dad. And man, like that moment was, I'm sure it was nothing compared to what you found, but it was a real journey. Like you had to do some work to really take it upon yourself to be ready for that experience. And then
Sure.
once you found him, like it was a whole flood of emotions after that, um so let's talk about that as much as you're willing to talk about it. Let's talk
Yeah.
about what that experience was, because this is obviously going to be a full circle moment coming back into why you wrote the book and how it's going and things like that. But let's talk about that experience.
Yeah, for sure. So writing this book, is very important to note that writing this book was extremely therapeutic for me. In fact, during the process of writing, I sent emails both to both my parents, both my mom and my dad, during the process, and what it was bringing up for me. A lot of it was forgiveness and love and all these things. But finding and connecting with him was more emotional work at first than it actually was laborious. Like you hear these stories about people connecting with their parents and how it takes months and years, and I've been looking for, and you got to go to find these records and so on and so forth. And that wasn't the experience for me. Actually, there were times where little pieces of who he was, even while my father who raised me was alive, that sort of dripped into my purview, and I kind of ignored it, I guess, because I felt like I'm cool, like I have dad here. It wasn't until my father passed away that I became a bit more motivated to start that process. Fortunately, I was blessed enough to have a coworker by the name of Adrian, who is I always get this wrong, genealogist. She understands and how to trace ancestry back and such, and she helps people daily find and connect to relatives and build stories around that. So she helped me for about 4 months. It didn't take long, and I'm telling you, she did most all the work. I sent her some pictures and some names. And the first time I had already had a name, Kenneth Lovelady, which Lovelady was like, no, I kind of want to deny that. Like, Germany, Lovelady, that what a name, you know what I mean? But I had a name, and then eventually, I don't know if it was a month or a year later, like I had a picture, and I was like, man, I don't know, this dude is bald headed, he's dark skinned, and like I just didn't see him. I didn't see us at all. Like I just didn't see it. So I held on to the picture. I eventually gave it to her. She did some research, and she came across a Kenneth Lovelady Jr. And so I was like, all right, well, I found him on Facebook. Well, she found him on Facebook. I sent him a friend request, and I just watched his page for like 3 months. And the reason why I wasn't encouraged to like contact him directly immediately is because he looked nothing like. So it was one thing that my father, to me at the time, didn't really look like me. And then this guy, like, he definitely doesn't look like me. And about 3 months into that, he posted a picture of the two of them together. And because I had combed through his page and there were no pictures of them together until that moment, I was like, yo, like, So I called him through Facebook. This is, like, I guess you can connect your number through Facebook if you so choose. I called him through Facebook, and ironically, he was in the gym, working out, and I was like, he's like, okay, who's this? So on and so forth. And I was like, yo, this is Germany. I don't really know how else to tell you this, but I think that we're brothers. And so he, paused his workout, and we started talking, and some of the dots were connecting, and it was blowing his mind. And he said, man, look, let me give you a call back. I'm going to reach out to him, and let's get back to you. So he did just that. I think an hour and change went by. He called me back. He said he had spoke to him, shared background. I guess they talked about whatever they talked about. And he felt compelled to sort of speak as his representative from the lens of like, be patient, like be forgiving, be open. And I thought that was remarkable. Like,
and
he didn't say,
really quick. Sorry to cut you
Sure.
off. Keep that thought. But around how old were both of you during this time period?
Oh yeah, so I've known my biological father, I think this is 7 years now. 7 years now. I think this is now. So we were like 30, 32. Yeah, both of us. So a crazy story about that. Yeah. So anyhow, I'm gonna get into that like real soon. So he wanted to like, I don't know if it was like I don't know if, I think he was just trying to protect both of us for what was to come, because obviously he knew our dad all his life, and I think there were certain aspects of who he was that he wanted to forgive me for before I even started speaking with him. And then he wanted me to consider that he's a different person, like who he, like literally, like he's, cool, he's a very cool guy, so on and so forth. I was like, all right. I think about half hour went by, and then my dad called me, and man, just energy was just crazy. It was such a deep emotional experience for me. It's sort of difficult to describe. I had made up in my mind all of these things that I was going to do if I ever came across my dad in person. And he was in Sugar Land, Texas, so we were 1,300 miles apart. I'm in Jersey, so I couldn't do that. I had made up in my mind that, I was going to tighten him up.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Because there was so much anger. But just on the other side of that was relief. And really the bridge is love. I think that you have to love or be passionate about something to have anger about something. It may not be it could be a complete stranger that you just met, but you feel violated on some level, that they violated something you love, if it's a stranger. But if it's somebody they violated a relationship that you thought you had. So if you think of it from that way, there's always love. And then the forgiveness part is love. Trying to put it back together within your own self. And if you continue the relationship with that person, hopefully they can put it back together within themselves. So I just try to, like, just in general as a person, like I always try to look at the silver lining, the positive side of it, and get on really quick and forgive as quickly as possible, for both that person and myself. But anyhow, we talked and he explained the situation to me. And it turns out that he actually had 3 kids in the span of 18 months by 3 different people. So Papa was a Rolling Stone.
Papa was a Rolling Stone, which obviously that was going to be my next question, which is, how in the hell are you guys at the same age? But, you guys are similar in age, and that makes sense. That addresses that.
I'll be 39 next month. And then my brother is 38. I think he'll be 39 in like January or something like this. I can't remember the exact dates, but we're very close, obviously, in age, 18 months in between. And it was an amazing conversation we had. So, and since then, though, like we've grown extremely close. We've had some really cool and unique experiences, and we continue to do so. We talk almost every day. And yeah.
Okay. Now, again, I that's an amazing story, and I've heard some version of that before, but I want to paint the picture for the person that's listening and watching this, because it is important. And I'm sure you'll probably reveal even more and whatnot in the coming in the future. But I can't help but ask the question. I know the answer, but how did you come up with the names of the characters in the book?
Yeah, so the main character, his name is Marquise. My middle name is Marquise. I spelled it a bit different. So Bella is Marquise's best friend, female best friend. That's my oldest daughter's name. Who else is there? Mama M is the grandmother to Marquise. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, her name is Mary. Papa Joe, my maternal grandfather, his name is Joseph. And then it's funny, I don't think I gave my mom a name in that. It's just mom.
Just mom. Yeah, that's the name.
Just mom. That's the name. Yeah. So those are just a few characters. And then so my Marquise's cousin, who is about 7 or so years older than Marquise. His name is Cedric. Marquise's cousin was actually in real life, my uncle. We were very close. We were like brothers. He's actually passed when he was 32. I was 20. I must have been 25 or about to be 25. So there's that.
I distinctly recall the relationship with your coach. Can you describe that in juxtaposition of having your dad, but not your biological dad, and not knowing your real father, but then having this figure as coach? What is the coach's name, and could you describe a little bit more about that relationship and the importance of it?
Yeah. So coach, his name is Coach Johnson. So this takes me. Let's go back to how I was going to originally start this book. Again, it was going to be autobiographical, and I still may go there, right? Depending on how everything goes in the next couple of years of my life, I think it'll still be worth writing, which that's on my website actually. Live a life worth writing about. So I was originally going to write the book, and the title was going to be Finding My Forefathers. And those forefathers were the father that raised me, my biological father figures, and God. And it was all four that sort of cultivated and developed me into, and continue to do so, into who I am. As a young person, I always had gotten along with guys who were older than me, and I met a number of them through the gym, like playing basketball and things of that nature. Being that my mom is 19 years older than me, she herself was growing and still developing into a woman. So she had boyfriends, or she had friends that I met, so on and so forth. So those served as father figures. Coach Johnson is represented by a gentleman by the name of Fred Brown, who I consider an uncle. He's not my uncle. He's not my biological uncle at all. But he was somebody who helped to develop my basketball game when I was very young, like elementary, middle school, and some parts of high school even. He was really nice, like one of the better players to ever come out of Houston. If I remember correctly, he went to Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas. But, you know, he played at the Fundy, which is like a well-known recreational gym out here in Houston. Like they called him Downtown Fred Brown. Like he would play ball with Moses Malone and all these different guys, a lot of, you know, the alums back in the day from U of H and stuff like that. So he was nice. But he worked for the Parks and Recreation at Candlelight Park. And he had a group of guys, kids, girls, and boys that he would help work on their basketball game. And over the years, I developed a relationship with his son, who's much younger than I am. But like we would go on trips, we would play ball, like we would do all kinds of things together. And so he was just always a positive male role model in my life. And so he really stuck out to me, and I thought it was important to add him to my story.
And what is your hope with writing this? I mean, I know you touched on it a little bit in the beginning when we started discussing your book and who it's for and sort of the target market and things like that. But what is your genuine hope out of this, right? Like I imagine you didn't enter into this task for the hope of getting a lot of money, because a lot of people know that you don't go into writing books for the money. You go into it for various other things. And I know this was very cathartic for you and very therapeutic for you. But what are your genuine hopes for this book in the future and beyond?
Well, to this point, it's actually done a good portion of what I hoped it would do. Like you mentioned, be therapeutic. Allow me to go through the process of healing. And it's done that thus far. I think that inside of us, the child in us never actually dies. And because it never dies, it's important to heal the burdens or the wounds that have come up or that came up when we were young. You know, while the child never dies, we do develop into becoming adults. And so let's take the time to heal some of the issues that and traumas that we had gone through as children. So it's done a great job of doing that for me. Um, Additionally, my hope is that somebody in my who had experienced those things and who continues to experience, a child who experiences those things, they read it and they just get a moment, they can take a beat to say, wow, that resonates with me. Now they won't consciously probably say that out loud at 9, 10, 11, but perhaps they'll feel heard or understood. So that's important. And then maybe there's a mother who's raising a son that they can have an opportunity to connect and read this story together. Maybe take some notes from it. Maybe she can learn something from, hey, I didn't know that you were feeling this way. Maybe he'll read it and share it with her. Perhaps maybe there's somebody who is from a two-parent household who has a friend or cousin, some type of relative. Maybe it's a half sibling. Wow, this is what you may be experiencing. We're not immune to this, whether you're come from a two-parent household or not. We're all connected, and so it just helps us to understand each other a little bit better, what we're going through or what we could potentially be facing. Why does the kid who acts out in school, why do they do what they do? Potentially, maybe they feel neglected, maybe they feel abandoned, maybe they don't feel seen or heard. So I'm hoping that it can touch those lives. Beyond that, I hope to be able to get in front of an audience of kids, whether it's at their school or some type of conference or an outdoor activity, and show them that there is another side, or there is the other side of pain or struggle or abandonment, so on and so forth. And I'd like to speak directly to that and show that you can be strong. Obviously, a part of what I do is exercise. A huge part of what I do is exercise and movement. So maybe we could take a break from those negative or hard to deal with experiences and see that somebody that looks like them has overcome and continues to climb higher and higher and higher, and deals with that or has dealt with that. You know what I mean? So that's what's important to me, for sure.
That is the perfect segue into our Pomodoro break because you've been on the show before, and you know that I like to break up the monotony. Not that this is a belabored conversation or a boring conversation or anything like that. It's just very uplifting and very inspirational, very motivational. So I appreciate everything you've shared so far. However, when we've been in our static positions for said period of time, I like to always come up with ways to move. And being that you are a movement coach, you're a trainer, what would be something that you would encourage people to do, or what would you do in moments like this? Let's say you've been writing for 30 minutes and you feeling like you need to get up and do something. What would you do?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up. I'm currently writing my second book right now. I did it the other day. Like, I would do stuff like, the other day I put my phone out of reach, one, so it's not a distraction, and two, so that I can get up, like actively get up and just take a lap to it and change to like a whole new, because I like to write to music, so maybe change to a completely different playlist. I put it out of reach, took that lap, and I did some push-ups.
Don't talk about it, be about it. Let's see it.
So, okay, so
let's see it. This is why we got the video going.
Right. Let me see. Maybe come over here. Can you see me here? Matter of fact, I'll just turn the camera.
Technology.
Yes.
I got to figure out how I'm gonna turn myself. But yeah, you do you, bro. I'm gonna do this in the background.
How's that? That looks okay.
That looks great.
That's not terrible. All right. So, what do we say? Maybe let's do 20 push-ups.
Let's do 20. Give me 25. 2, 3, 4. 5.
It's funny. Counting and talking has always been a weak suit of mine. I'm sure you probably remember from my training. I don't know where I am.
6.
But I hit at least
7.
You say 6?
Now, Germany just pumped out a good 2025.
Yeah.
If you are only listening, you missed out on Germany doing push-ups with great form, and I do recall when we used to work together at the Core Club. I do recall there was a point in time which I thought, "Ooh, I'm going to borrow that," because we share a lot of experiences together, and when you hear somebody say something or do something, you kind of think, "Oh, that's good. That's a good way of looking at it." And I remember you said to a client straight up, you just were like, "Hey, just to let you know, I am terrible at counting. I am terrible at counting." And I thought, man, that's a really good way to kind of encourage people to, if counting actually means something to you, because I mean, to be quite honest with you, I could pull out a number. I'm known for doing this too, but I like to pull out random numbers. Like, I want you to do 7 reps, and then I want you to do 19. And people will be like, why not 10 and why not 20?
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm like, it don't really matter, right? We're just trying to build up the system. But I do remember that, man. I thought that was so funny. Well done.
Yeah, man. I'm terrible at it. I just focus on the form. That's what's important.
So this is for all the clients out there who work with trainers. We're well known for adding an extra 5 reps, or I mean, I'm sure we've seen people at the gym who are just completely bored with their client, and their client's doing push-ups and they're on their phone doing God knows what, and then the client will be like, "How many more?" It's almost always the stereotypical answer from a trainer: 5 more.
5 more.
5 more. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. One of the questions that comes to mind, knowing your situation with your family, and you've got 2 daughters, I imagine that there's some influence of having 2 kids and having this be one of the reasons why you wrote the book. Have they read the book, and what are their thoughts on all of this?
Yeah. So have they read it in its entirety? No. What I will say though is that they were very much contributory to the development of it, in that I would write a chapter or write halfway through a chapter and, "Hey, can you read this for me? What do you think?" Because I wanted to make sure it's my first time striking out, writing a book, let alone like writing a kid's novel, right? I didn't want to speak over the head of my audience using too big of words and so on and so forth. So I would check in with them and allow them to chime in and say, "What do you think of this? Is this something you would continue to read? Do you talk like this? Are you familiar with this word?" So on and so forth. And I'd let them read, and then I'd continue or I'd change, so on and so forth. So it was important for me to use them in that way. In addition to that, I wanted them to contribute quotes as well. So I let them contribute quotes in the book. I think there are probably like 6 total. I tried to like let them each get 3, as well as the quote that a quote that I wrote. As in fact, let me read that. I want to read the quote that I wrote.
I got it. I got one. I mean, I got 3 I wanted to bring up anyway. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So, let's talk about that.
Yeah, one of the ones. First I'll start with Zoe, because Zoe's your youngest daughter, and I just thought, like, just reading this, I thought this is pretty powerful. So Zoe says, "Just because part of your family is missing, it doesn't mean that a part of you is missing." Beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. And then another one from your oldest daughter, Bella. Her quote is, "Your questions may not always be answered, but there may be something within the answer given that is worth considering."
Fact.
Right? And then one of the other ones that I have notated here is from Germany. This is your own quote. "The father shapes a boy into a virtuous man with competences of discernment, free from doubt and confusion." Those are all very, very powerful quotes. And I think it's worth considering, right? It's worth elaborating. It's worth just even sitting with and thinking about, period. Like, sometimes we don't even need to respond to those words. Sometimes we just need to let that sit for a moment and think, wow, I mean, how old is Zoe and how old is Bella?
So Zoe is 11. Bella will be 14 at the end of July. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I
So time has
I
gone.
remember when both of them were babies, bro. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
How what how and why do you think they have the ability to come up with those kind of quotes? Is it because you've talked with them a lot throughout all of this? Because those aren't quotes that I think any 11 and 14-year-old would just come up with willy nilly on their own.
Yeah, I think so. I talk to my kids all the time, like sometimes to a fault. Like they like, all right, I get it. But that's something that I had wished that I had, just conversation, right? You know, and I want to be sure not to disregard my father who raised me, you know, in any kind of way. But the fact of the matter is that we didn't live together day in and day out, and that's the truth, you know. And so there were opportunities missed in the quiet moments and just the day this is and that were missed because we didn't live together. So I did not have that experience, and my kids get to have that experience with me. And so I try and challenge them to think beyond their emotion, to consider things, because when you're a child or you have an immature mind, you tend to just emote, right? You don't think before you do. And so I was like, look, I'm trying to build something here. I want you to be a part of it. Let's come up with some quotes together. And so yes, I helped come up with ideas, but I drove them each to think deeper, and then I helped to curate it in a nice packaged way. And I asked them, now, does this still sound like something you said? So, um, does it still resonate with you? Does it still feel like yours? And that's what I wanted to get from them.
Before we like start to wrap up, there's a couple thoughts that come to mind, and one
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that the title of the book is One Grateful Summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I don't think we should give all of the entirety of the book on this show, so that in hopes that people will go out and buy the book and share their feedback and conversate with you about that, which you can do that on this platform. You can write in the comments section. You can let us know how you feel about it, connect with him, and we'll obviously be very thorough on best ways to get the book and to connect with Germany, and all of that, obviously. But my thought, the way I think about various terms and titles and words, I think, maybe this could be another part of the book, or a second book, and you could talk about another grateful summer, right? Because
That's a good point.
you know what I mean? Because it's like the first thing I think of is, well, how does it end? Like, why was this summer grateful? And why was it just the one summer?
Yeah.
And so maybe that could be something you can consider. I mean, obviously you do what you will. This is your project and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I just kind of thought, like, I wonder what it would look like if you continue that as almost like a
sequel
part
or
two.
a series.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So something worth considering.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities. There's so much. Man, this thing is chunky, man. I'm talking about, like, it's a gumbo, man. It's soup. It's all those things. Let's just put it all in there. And there's so many things to be extracted and to be discussed, from the topics and the things that take place in this book, from Marquise's experience to Bella's experience to, the grandmother's, all these things to talk about, which brings me to a point as far as like extracting something. Let me see, what chapter is that? It's entitled. Sorry. Yeah, chapter 7. Mama M knows best. So we talked about things that, I don't know, maybe unique to the Black community, in that Big Mama, right? You in the Black community, you probably got a Big Mama or a mama.
We all
or
got a
something.
Big Mama.
Big Mama tends to have the family secret. She knows, she has the tea. She knows what's going on. She knows about everybody. And what tends to happen in the Black community, I think, is that those secrets are kept in fear of the desire to protect the integrity of the whole, not telling business, so on and so forth. And to a certain degree, I think that that's appropriate, not to let everything out. But I think it's more so important not to let everything out to the public. And that doesn't necessarily mean online, but like if you're not in the family, you're not in the conversation like that. But to not tell what's going on with, the cousin or the brother, and that conversation probably should be had because somebody else in the family is going through that. It's worth it. And then you can start to have, resentment, and you don't understand why this person behaves that way, or maybe they don't like me, or I thought we were family, we should do this way. It just happens so much, I think, in the Black community, and some of the psychological issues that we deal with, we don't necessarily have to. That's why therapy is so important. And it's becoming less secretive, if you will. But I hope that somebody can extract from that chapter the importance of let's talk about it. You're not protecting everybody. You're not protecting who you think you're protecting. You're just assuming that they can't handle it. And in a way, it's somewhat selfish. You're not allowing a person to grow. You grow through what you go through. It did happen. This is a thing. Let's talk about it and heal together. So I that's what one of the chapters in there. Mama M, Marquise is having a conversation with her. So
yeah, I think about I think it was Cuba Gooding Jr. saying, "You can't handle the truth." You remember that, right?
Yeah. Right. Oh no, that
was it Denzel? Who's it?
It was. He was in the movie with the guy who said it. Jack Nicholas said it. And they were in court, and it was the military police, the court, or something like that. Yeah,
that's right. Well, I mean, listen, I have to say this, but and before we get into the last two questions that we always do on the show, something that was very interesting is that I'm actually very happy that you eventually found your biological father, and you're probably wondering why is that? Because everybody always talking about you and Germ looking like, I swear y'all are brothers. And I'm like, man, Germ, do we need to call our parents? You know what I mean?
Right. He's so
for real, bro. I'm like, no, he found his dad. He good. Man, we just, Anyway, yeah, I love it because, to be honest with you, man, like I treat it as an honor to be able to have someone say, man, you guys got to be brothers. You know what I mean? Because it's like we play ball, we're into fitness, we both from the South, the Midwest, right? It's like there's so many things that just when we first met each other, I'd never forget the first time we met each other. We both were modeling at the same time, and that's how we met, actually. And I remember seeing you, and I remember seeing you see me.
Yeah.
And we both didn't really want to look at each other. It was kind of like, man, who is this dude?
Yeah.
And then somebody came up to me and was like, yo, Germ. We all call you Germ, it's short for Germany. But somebody was like, yo, Germ can hoop. And for me, that was like, nah, I'm the hooper here. I'm the hooper here, right?
Yeah.
And I remember finally we got a chance to talk, and it was real cool. Like we dapped it up. We stayed in touch. And next thing you know, you move into New York City. I remember giving you the lowdown of like what the city was like because I had never lived there. And I remember the first time we got on the court together, it was like, yeah, Jerm can hoop. So, it's nothing but love, man. And I think it's one of those things where iron sharpens iron, right? And
sure.
I feel like we all should be surrounding ourselves with those who are better than us, or those that may push our level of success. And throughout the years, man, we've done so much together, and it's been nothing but amazing. And I'm just beyond happy to see where you are now, bro. It's a different germ that I met back then, and I see that now. Even just the way you communicate with me on the show. So I'm very grateful to have you here, and that leads me to the last couple of questions.
Sure.
So you've been on the show before. You know how it goes. One of my favorite questions, and the reason for it is because I love the responses that come out of it. I get the chance to get to know people even more.
Yeah.
What is your top 2 pet peeves as of right now? What are 2 things that just get under your skin?
Yeah.
And it could be from anything.
Yeah, good deal. I was ready for this. I think that I may have texted you on this not long ago. I know I texted somebody about this. I think that there should be in every airport on the big screen playing 24/7 proper egress and ingress etiquette for planes. Don't be in seat 20, whatever, hustling to get to 16 and then stand there.
Oh, bruh. and not even just on planes, bro, but just like, yeah. I'm with you.
Oh my gosh, I've seen it so many times. Like that's big, and yeah, that's a big one for me. I would say the second one would be lately. I've been driving in Houston a lot, and changing lanes with no signal, like really close, erratic. Like it's bad out here. It's terrible. Yeah. So use your indicator.
What is your response to that? And how has that changed over the years?
Well, it's been here for a little while now, and it wasn't my experience driving in South Jersey. It's just crazy. It's just dangerous, and just like, it's funny, but because I think people do it because they assume that nobody would actually let them over, and so more people do it. So you have to keep doing it, and I guess it's sort of like what was going on with steroids in baseball. Well, 10 people do it on my team. I want to keep my job, so I guess I have to do it. It's not going back in the bottle. You know what I mean? So I get it.
Or just complete laziness, but that's neither here nor there. My last question, and this obviously is perfectly aligned with the title of your book, but what is something you're most grateful for?
I would have to say my natural instinctual willingness to forgive. Like, it's just in me, I don't know. It's just I'm truly grateful for that. Like, forgiveness is so important, I think, because it's really important for me to love and be loved. And I don't think we can truly do it well enough without forgiving those who have transgressed against us and who we have transgressed against. Like, I mean, you have to forgive yourself too in order to get on.
Yeah, that's very powerful, and
I genuinely thank God for that, man. Seriously.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. All right, well, as I promised earlier, we will make sure that everyone knows how to get in touch with you. But if you could, just while we have you here, could you explain to people the best ways to get in touch with you, to follow your journey, and to ultimately get your book?
Yeah, so my fitness Instagram page is at Germany Fit. My writing page is at Germany Writes, WRITES. And then hopefully you guys, I have a Shopify site. Hopefully you guys leave it in the show notes. It's pretty long. So you can get a signed copy that way. You can order the book on Amazon as well. Just search One Grateful Summer. If you do decide to go that route, please leave a review. even if you hadn't read it yet, tell everybody that you're excited to read it. But I can guarantee you won't be disappointed when you do flip those pages. It's worth it.
Also, as a quick side note on that, just because I know about Amazon and Kindle and all that stuff, if you are going to go the route of trying to help Germany out with buying a book and then writing a review, do not buy it and then immediately write a review, because that gets flagged, and the powers that be know that that's not a genuine review. So maybe give yourself a couple of days before you do it, but just make sure you do it if you can.
Perfect. That's a gem for me. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, that's that. Germ, yeah, go ahead.
Real quick. Also, if you buy the autographed copy from my Shopify site, I set up a discount code for you guys for 15% off. It's simply 15. So use that code, get yourself 15% off, get that signed copy that will come from me personally. So yeah, that's it.
That's what's up. Well, I genuinely hope that this gets all the praise and accolades that you hope it gets and that you deserve. Very good job. Well done. I know this is not an easy undertaking. It's been a journey, as you said, 38 years in the making.
Yeah.
But kudos to you, man. Congrats. And keep walking the talk, brother. This is Josh signing out from Simply Walk the Talk. Peace.
Simply walk the talk.
Walk the talk, talking facts. Move like me, but I move a little fast. Make my move, here to last. Fasten these seatbelts, I'm coming past. Take care of me, longevity. Hack my biology, better believe. Walking the talk, soul, mind, and body connected. Better come give us a listen.